Time now to recap the legislative session from the perspective of House leadership. For that, we welcome Speaker Brad Wilson and House Minority Leader Angela Romero to the show. Thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get right into it. This was a session where we saw you really come right out of the gates with a very fast start, and then it ended a couple hours early on the final day on Friday. So every session tends to take its own personality and its own feeling. Speaker, let's start with you. What is your overall feel for this year's legislative session?
It's great to be with you, Glenn. I have been involved in the legislature now for a number of years, and I can tell you with certainty that I haven't seen a legislative session that's had a bigger impact, a positive impact, on the lives of Utahns than this particular one. The issues we tackled were sizable. They touched every aspect of people's lives, whether it's paying lower taxes or improving the education system in our state, to making sure we've got the best transportation system in the country. I mean, the list just goes on and on. We had a great legislative session this year.
Representative Romero, your thoughts. What is your overall feel for how this year played out?
Well, I felt like this year was a roller coaster ride I couldn't get off of, but it was exciting at the same time. I agree with the speaker. We did do some significant lifts when it came to looking at the Great Salt Lake, transportation in particular, and education. We may not have went about it the way I would have wanted to go about it, but we were able to fund a full-day kindergarten, which was really important to me. And we were also able to see a lot of strides when it came to covering kids in healthcare.
There was some talk outside of the legislature of this being, or at least feeling like, potentially a more partisan legislative session. Speaker, you had some movement within your body where some more moderate members made their exit, replaced by some that were further right thinking. Did you see it that way, and how did you manage that, either way you saw it?
Yeah, I wouldn't actually characterize it that way, Glenn. I mean, we've had some really remarkable members serve in the legislature, and we had a new group come in that was very capable. They were very bright. They worked really hard. The Republicans came in, they were very conservative, but that is typically what we see elected to the House, and they made a really big impact, and they helped us do those big things that we already talked about. So managing them, that's really not my job. My job is to manage the agenda and make sure that we get the process right and the policy works through the process the way that it's designed, and it worked out great this year.
Representative Romero, your thoughts on this being a partisan session, is that how you see it?
Well, I would say I felt like it leaned more right, and for me, I felt like we were a little bit more moderate in years past that I've served, so this is probably the most conservative legislature that I've ever served in. But that said, part of being an elected official is learning who your colleagues are and finding that connection, because my job is to represent the people who elected me and make sure that their voice is heard.
Speaker, you already got into this a little bit, but let's dig further with some more specifics. What do you see as the most important thing you and your colleagues accomplished up on the Hill?
Glenn, that is an impossible question to answer, to be honest, but let me just touch on a few things really quickly. Utahns have been just pummeled by inflation over the course of the last few years, primarily because of the federal government's reckless way they've been using monetary policy and sending money out to people and businesses, and it's created all this inflation, and it's really impacted everyday Utahns' lives, whether it's paying more for gas or groceries or housing, you name it. And one of the things we did is we did a big tax cut so that Utahns have more money that they can spend the way they want to on the things that matter the most to them. We felt like giving Utahns the ability to send less money to the state capitol and use it the way they chose was going to be really, really important. The other thing that I would just couple that with is the amazing year we had for public education. Teachers will see the biggest raise that they've ever seen in the state's history. On top of that, Representative Romero already talked about all-day kindergarten. It's going to have a big impact on the lives of the children in this state, and the list just went on and on, but it was a banner year for public education and education in general.
Representative Romero, you did already mention a few things, but what are some other issues that you think were really important that got through this year?
Well, I agree with the speaker when it comes to public education. Where I would disagree with him is where we tied it to what I would call it's titled scholarship, but for me, I see it as a voucher. So I felt like that was taken away from public education. But overall, I agree with the speaker, especially when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to transportation. This is not a sexy issue that we talk about, but we really need to look at that infrastructure. We need to look about how we use mass transit. And as the state grows, how do we accommodate all the people that are here moving into Utah, where we're making sure our air is clean and people have a place to live. And so one of the other things that we really looked at was affordable housing and how do we address homelessness. So as the speaker mentioned, we accomplished a lot of stuff, and particularly, we always tend to forget this, but domestic violence and sexual assault, that was something that was a priority for the lieutenant governor, I know for the speaker and the president and myself, and so that's something I felt like we've taken some major steps and still need to take some more, but we moved further than I've seen since I've been elected.
Speaker, address that, if you will, because that did get some attention early on, House Bill 215, where we took those two issues, the teacher raise and the voucher program, and married them together into one bill. Why did you see that as the right way forward?
Well, one of the things that I believe, and I think a lot of folks believe, is that parents are those most capable and most invested in their kids' education. And we've got amazing public schools. As the son of a public school teacher and two sisters that teach public school, I know how hard they work and what a great job they're doing. But sometimes there are needs that our kids have that maybe the public school around the corner isn't the perfect fit for. And so the legislature decided this year to give parents the opportunity to have a scholarship where they could choose to take their kids somewhere else and use that scholarship to help facilitate their kids' public education. And we felt that was a choice that was important for parents to have. Not a lot of parents will choose to do that, but some will, and it'll make a big difference in the lives of those kids. Well, but at the same time, we wanted to make sure that our public school teachers were getting paid very, very well. And so we thought it made sense to do those things at the same time, and we did, and it's going to result in great options for our kids, but also our school teachers getting the biggest raise they've ever seen.
Right off the bat, also there were some transgender bills addressing transgender youth. We also saw some abortion bills come up, ended up passing through the legislature as well. Representative Romero, your thoughts on those bills?
Well, I was very disappointed that we, as a legislature, would dive into this. As you know, I'm probably rare up there. I really feel like a woman has the choice to do what she wants with her own body, and that's a decision between her and her doctor. And when it comes to transgender youth, I mean, we have so few youth that are transitioning, and that's something very personal to them and their parents. And so I really feel like that should be left to them, their doctor, and their family. And sometimes when we pass legislation, we think we're helping, but there's those unintentional consequences. And so I worry about our trans youth. I worry about their mental health. I worry that they feel like they're not supported. And so that's a message that they hear sometimes when we run legislation, whether that's the intention or whether intention was good or it wasn't. That's what I'm hearing in the community.
Speaker, your thoughts on that bill? It really flew through in the first couple of weeks. Why do you see that as an area the legislature needs to get involved in?
Well, this is an area that's been discussed all over the world, actually, including here in Utah. And there are certain decisions that are irreversible. And basically what the legislature said this session is that for our youth that may want to change their gender, that irreversible decision needs to be made slowly. And so we passed a bill that said that we're going to study this issue for a few years, but in the meantime, putting kids on puberty blockers is something that we're going to push the pause button on right now until we have more information. And we understand how complicated and emotionally charged these issues are, but I think we landed in a really, really good spot.
We have about a minute left. I'd like to get both of your thoughts on the quick start this year. Speaker, you and the President both, making it clear that would be the strategy from the beginning. Looking back, is that something that worked out and that you may see again in the future?
Well, we knew we had some complicated issues that were going to require a lot of focus and energy from the legislature, and so we decided to tackle those early in the session. I think it worked well. It gave us the opportunity then to switch to the budget, which was a big budget this year. It was the biggest budget in our state's history, $29 billion, and that took a lot of work. And so getting some of these tough issues out early, focusing on the budget worked well. And for the first time that I can remember, we adjourned before 10 o'clock at night on the last day, so that was amazing.
Representative Romero, your thoughts on that quick start and getting those really big bills out of the way in the first few weeks?
Well, I felt like with those big bills, we probably needed to have more discussion and more input from community. So I guess I saw it a little bit different. As I mentioned earlier, I felt like I was on this roller coaster ride, and it just never dropped me off. And but you know, this is the legislative process. This is how things are done, and our main priority is passing the budget. I mean, that's a big budget that we passed this year, and there was a lot of services a lot of things that did work. Did I agree with the bills that were passed at the beginning of the session? No. And you saw a partisan divide when it came to talking about transgender youth, talking about abortion, and those really complicated issues that are so complex that I really feel like that shouldn't have been a part of our conversation as a legislature.
All right, we have run out of time. I really appreciate your insight and how the session played out in your eyes. Thanks to both of you for being here this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.